The black norther rolled down from Canada like the wrath of God, turning the Montana sky to bruised iron in the space of a heartbeat. Olivia Carson saw it coming from her father's north pasture and knew instantly that Samuel Foster's herd, grazing just over the ridge on open range, would scatter to hell and gone if someone did not turn them fast. She kicked her bay gelding into a gallop without thinking twice, cutting across the frozen earth toward the dark mass of cattle already beginning to drift south with the wind at their backs. Samuel's ranch hands were nowhere to be seen. Cowards or sensible, she could not say, but the result was the same. 200 head of prime beef cattle moving away from shelter, away from the windbreaks and the creek bottom where they might survive what was coming. The temperature had already dropped 20 degrees in as many minutes. Her breath came out in white plumes that the wind tore away before they could rise. She came at the herd from the east, leaning low over her horse's neck, yelling into the wind though she knew they could not hear her over its roar. The leaders turned, confused, and she pressed harder, cutting back and forth, forcing them to wheel westward toward Foster land proper. Sleet began to fall, sharp as broken glass against her face. Her fingers were going numb inside her gloves, but she did not slow. The cattle were moving now, reluctantly at first, then with more purpose as their instincts kicked in, and they sensed shelter somewhere ahead. She had no idea Samuel Foster was riding toward her from the opposite direction, until his big roan gelding materialized out of the gathering white curtain of snow. He took in the situation with a single glance, nodded once, and positioned himself on the far flank without a word. Together they pushed the herd toward the ranch buildings, toward the breaks and gullies that would offer protection from the worst of the storm. The world narrowed to movement and cold, and the constant need to keep the cattle bunched and moving forward. By the time they drove the last stragglers into the shelter of the cottonwood breaks near Foster's barn, Olivia could not feel her feet in her stirrups. The snow was falling so thick she could barely see 10 feet in any direction. Samuel appeared beside her, his hat white with accumulation, ice in his dark beard. "Barn," he said, the single word nearly lost in the wind. She followed him because there was no other choice. Her horse knew the way even if she did not. The barn doors stood open and they rode straight in, into sudden shocking dimness and the smell of hay and animals, and out of that terrible wind. Samuel dismounted stiffly and pulled the doors shut behind them, dropping the bar into place. The silence was so abrupt it rang in Olivia's ears. "Thank you," he said, turning to look at her properly for the first time. "You saved them." "Where were your hands?" Olivia asked, sliding down from her saddle with less grace than she would have liked, her legs nearly buckled. "Town, payday," his jaw tightened. "I sent them yesterday." Storm was not supposed to hit until tomorrow. "Weather does not read the farmer's almanac," Olivia said. She led her horse into an empty stall and began pulling the saddle off with clumsy hands. Samuel moved to help her without asking, lifting the heavy saddle away and setting it on the rail. His hands were steady despite the cold. "You should not have ridden out," he said after a moment. "Neither should you alone," Olivia shot back. "We would both be fools if we were dead." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his weathered face. Samuel Foster was not an expressive man. Olivia had known him by sight for 3 years, ever since he bought the old Morrison place and started building it back up from nothing. He came to church sometimes, sat in the back, left before the socializing started. He was maybe 30, lean and work-hardened, with gray eyes that seemed to see everything and reveal nothing. "House is warmer than the barn," he said. "Coffee, too." The house was a low stone structure built into the side of a rise, protected from the north wind by the land itself. Samuel got the door open and ushered her inside, into a single large room that served as kitchen, sitting area, and sleeping quarters all at once. A potbelly stove radiated heat in the center. Olivia went straight to it, holding her hands out to the warmth. Samuel hung up his coat and hat, shook the snow from his hair, and moved to the stove to coax the fire higher. He filled a battered coffee pot with water from a bucket and set it to boil, then ladled beans from a pot into 2 tin bowls and set them on the table. "Not much," he said. "Better than freezing," Olivia replied. She sat down, suddenly aware of how tired she was. The warmth was making her fingers and toes burn as sensation returned. She ate the beans mechanically, not tasting them, just needing the fuel. Outside, the storm howled. Snow piled against the window glass, cutting them off from the world. "It will blow for days," Samuel said, staring into his coffee. "3, maybe 4. I have seen these northers before." "My father will worry," Olivia said. "He will know you had sense enough to shelter." "Anyone out in this is dead." Samuel spoke matter-of-factly, without drama. "You can take the bed. I will sleep near the stove." Olivia wanted to argue but could not summon the energy. She finished her coffee, kicked off her boots, and lay down on the narrow bed in the corner without undressing further. Sleep took her like a falling stone. She woke to gray light and the continued roar of wind. Samuel was already up, dressed, pulling on his coat. "Cattle," he said when he saw her stirring. "Need to check them. Food in the pan if you want it." He was gone before she could respond, cold air swirling in and then cut off as the door slammed shut. Olivia sat up, rubbed her face, and took stock. The house was small but solidly built. The shelves held canned goods, flour, cornmeal, coffee, dried beans. A ham hung from a rafter. There were blankets, a few books, tools hung on pegs. Everything was functional, nothing decorative except for a single photograph in a wooden frame on the shelf. A young woman with dark hair and a serious expression. Olivia looked away from it and busied herself building up the fire and making coffee. She found eggs in a basket and fried them with some salt pork, eating standing up by the stove. When Samuel came back an hour later, stamping snow from his boots, she had hot coffee waiting. "Bad?" she asked. "Could be worse. They are in the breaks out of the worst wind. I broke ice on the creek for them to drink." He accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping his cold hands around the tin cup. "Lost some chickens. Coop door blew open. Fox or coyote got them. I am sorry," he shrugged. "Chickens can be replaced." They fell into silence. Olivia found herself studying the room again, noticing things. Papers scattered on a small desk in the corner, some kind of ledger lying open. She walked over without thinking, drawn by habit. Her father ran a small ranch and she kept his books, had since her mother died when she was 16. That was 6 years ago now, and she knew every trick of making a ranch balance its accounts. These accounts did not balance. She picked up the ledger, frowning, flipping back through pages. Samuel's handwriting was clear enough, but the numbers told a story of slow hemorrhage. Expenses exceeding income month after month. Cattle sold at prices below market rate. Supply costs that seemed inflated. A note about fencing materials that made no sense given the acreage. "Something wrong?" Samuel asked from behind her. Olivia turned, still holding the ledger. "Who keeps your books?" "I do." He said it simply, without defensiveness. "Who buys your supplies?" "I do. Sometimes I send one of the hands into town with a list." "Which hands?" Samuel's eyes narrowed slightly. "What did you find?" "You are being robbed," Olivia said bluntly. She set the ledger down and tapped the page. "These supply costs are at least 30% higher than they should be. Someone is pocketing the difference. And these cattle sales, you are getting bottom dollar when you should be getting mid-range at minimum for the quality you run." Who negotiates your sales? Walt Henderson, my foreman. Samuel came closer, looking down at the book. His face was unreadable. He has been with me since the beginning. Then he has been stealing from you since the beginning, Olivia said. She flipped to another page. Look. You bought 200 pounds of oats here in March. The price is marked as $12. I know for a fact Morrison's mill was selling oats at $8 per 100 pounds that month because my father bought some. Someone is adding 50% to the cost and keeping it. Samuel stared at the numbers for a long moment. A muscle worked in his jaw. Hell, he said finally, quietly. How much do you owe the bank? Olivia asked. Enough to lose the place if I miss a payment. He pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. I have been running as tight as I can. Thought I was just unlucky. Prices, weather, sick animals, all the things that happen. Some of that is real, Olivia said, sitting across from him. But this is making it worse. If you can cut costs back to actual rates and get fair prices for your cattle, you might pull through. Might, Samuel echoed. He rubbed his face with both hands. Walt will be back when the storm clears. Will you confront him? I will fire him, Samuel said flatly. And the others if they are in on it. I cannot prove anything to the law, but I can get them off my land. Then you will need a new foreman. New hands, maybe, in the middle of winter. Good luck finding anyone. He sounded tired, defeated in a way Olivia had not expected. Samuel Foster had always seemed like granite, unshakable. You need better systems, Olivia said. She pulled the ledger toward her, studying it more closely. And someone who can go to town with you when you negotiate sales. Someone the buyers know cannot be cheated. That would be you, I suppose. Samuel looked at her directly for the first time since they had started talking about the books. Why do you care? Olivia paused. It was a fair question. Because I hate seeing good work destroyed by lazy thievery, she said finally. You built this place up from nothing. That Morrison Ranch was a wreck when you bought it, and now it is one of the better operations in the county. That takes skill and backbreaking work, and you deserve better than to lose it to a crooked foreman. Something shifted in Samuel's expression, though she could not have named what it was. How long have you been keeping your father's books? 6 years. Since my mother passed. You are good at it. Yes, Olivia said without false modesty. I am. I cannot pay you, Samuel said. Not until I get things turned around. I am not asking you to. Olivia stood and went to look out the window. The snow was still falling, the world beyond the glass an undifferentiated white. We are snowed in anyway. I might as well be useful. For the next 3 days, they fell into a rhythm. Samuel went out morning and evening to check on the cattle, break ice, distribute what feed he had stored. Olivia stayed inside and worked through his records, creating a clear picture of the ranch's finances. She reorganized his supply lists, made notes about which merchants in town were reliable and which were not, calculated what he could expect to make from his spring cattle drive if he got fair prices. In the evenings, they ate together and talked. At first the conversations were stilted, awkward. Samuel was not a man comfortable with idle chatter. But when Olivia asked him about the land, about cattle and horses and the mechanics of running the ranch, he opened up. He had opinions, strong ones about breeding and grazing rotation and water rights. He had bought the Morrison place because of the creek, reliable water year-round, and he had plans to expand if he could ever get ahead of his debts. You should run sheep on the high pasture, Olivia said one evening. They were sitting at the table, dinner finished, the lamp burning low between them. Samuel looked skeptical. This is cattle country. Sheep pay better for the acreage if you do it right, and they handle the high ground your cattle will not use, extra income to pay down the bank. Olivia tapped the ledger. You need diversity. Relying on one big cattle sale a year leaves you too vulnerable. You know sheep. My mother's family raised them in Wyoming before they came to Montana. I spent summers there as a girl. Olivia met his eyes. I know what I am talking about. I believe you, Samuel said, and she realized he meant it. On the fourth day, the wind finally died. The sky cleared to hard blue, the temperature still bitter, but the storm passed. Samuel saddled both horses and they rode out together to check the herd. The cattle had survived, bunched together in the protected breaks, snow piled high around them. Some were weak, a few would not make it, but the losses were far less than they might have been. You saved them, Samuel said again, looking out over the herd. If they had drifted south, they would have walked until they froze. We saved them, Olivia corrected. He glanced at her, something warm in his usually cool gray eyes, but said nothing. They rode back to the house to find 3 men on horses waiting in the yard. Samuel's hands returned from town. Walt Henderson, the foreman, was a thick-shouldered man in his 40s with a red face and shrewd eyes. He looked surprised to see Olivia. "Miss Carson," he said, touching his hat brim. "Glad to see you made it through the storm safe." "I am sure you are," Olivia said neutrally. Samuel dismounted and stood facing his foreman. "You are fired," he said without preamble. "All 3 of you, collect your things from the bunkhouse and be off my land by sundown." Walt's face went darker red. "The hell I am. You owe me wages." "I will pay you what you are actually owed, minus what you stole from me." Samuel's voice was level, hard as iron. "The books do not lie. Inflated supply costs, underpriced cattle sales. I know what you did. You cannot prove a damn thing." Walt's hand moved toward his belt, and Samuel's hand was faster, resting on the butt of the revolver at his own hip. "I do not need to prove it to the law," Samuel said. "I just need you off my property. Now." The other 2 hands shifted nervously in their saddles. Walt stared at Samuel for a long moment, then spat in the snow. "You are finished, Foster. You will lose this place by spring without me. I will take my chances." Walt wheeled his horse and rode toward the bunkhouse, the other 2 following. Samuel did not move until they emerged with their bedrolls and few possessions, mounted up and rode out. Only then did he let out a breath and relax his stance. "That could have gone worse," Olivia said quietly. "Could have." Samuel looked at her. "You should go home. Your father will want to see you, I know." But Olivia did not move. "Will you be all right here alone? I have been alone before. Not in the middle of winter with no hands and a ranch to run." Samuel was silent for a moment. "What are you suggesting?" Olivia had been asking herself that same question for 3 days. "Hire me," she said. "Not as a hand, as a partner. Someone to manage the books, negotiate the sales, organize the work. You know the cattle and the land. I know the business side. Together we might actually make this place profitable." "You would leave your father's ranch. He has 2 younger brothers living with him now. He does not need me the way he used to." It was true. Her uncles had arrived last fall from back east, looking for a fresh start. They were learning the ranch work quickly. "And I am tired of just keeping books. I want to build something." Samuel studied her face, searching for something. "People will talk," he said finally. "Unmarried woman working a ranch with an unmarried man. Let them talk. I stopped caring what Eureka Springs busybodies thought a long time ago." Olivia crossed her arms. "Is that a yes or a no? What would you want in return? A share? 20% of the profits once the debts are paid." 30, Samuel said. "If you are taking the risk, you deserve a fair stake." Olivia blinked, surprised. 30%, you will earn it." He held out his hand. "Partners." She shook his hand, his grip firm and warm even through their gloves. "Partners," she agreed. She rode home that afternoon to face her father's relief and questions. Thomas Carson was a gruff man, weathered by years of ranch work, but fair-minded. When Olivia explained what she wanted to do, he was quiet for a long time. "Samuel Foster is a decent man," he said finally. "Hardworking, honest, but you know what people will say, I know. And you are sure about this? Sure it is the work you want and not the man?" Olivia opened her mouth to give an automatic denial and found she could not. In 3 days snowed in together, she had seen more of Samuel Foster than most people saw in years. His steadiness, his quiet competence, the way he listened when she talked and took her ideas seriously. The way he moved through the world with purpose and without complaint. She had watched him work in brutal cold to save his animals, watched him face down a crooked foreman without flinching, watched him offer her a partnership without hesitation or condescension. "I am sure about the work," she said carefully. "The rest is none of my business unless he makes it so." Her father nodded slowly. "Then you have my blessing, but you come home if things go wrong. Promise me." "I promise." She moved her things to the Foster ranch the next day, taking a room in the small foreman's house that stood empty 50 yards from the main building. It was cold and had not been used in months, but she cleaned it out and made it livable. A place of her own, proper and separate. The busybodies could chew on that. The winter was brutal. Samuel hired 2 new hands, younger men recommended by Olivia's father, and together they worked to keep the ranch running. Olivia threw herself into organizing everything Samuel had let slide. She inventoried supplies, renegotiated credit terms with merchants, established relationships with buyers in 3 different towns so they would not be beholden to any single market. She rode into Eureka Springs once a week for supplies and to pick up mail, her chin high and her expression daring anyone to comment. Some did, of course. Mrs. Pemberton at the general store made pointed remarks about propriety. The banker, Mr. Sutcliffe, raised his eyebrows when Olivia came in with Samuel to discuss the loan terms. But Olivia had Thomas Carson's reputation behind her, and Samuel's quiet respectability, and gradually the talk died down to background murmurs. The work was hard but satisfying in a way she had not expected. Every improvement she made showed results. The supplies cost less. The feed lasted longer because she calculated rations properly. The new hands, young Jake Morrison and his cousin Pete, worked hard and did not steal. Slowly, incrementally, the ranch began to stabilize. Samuel noticed. He did not say much. That was not his way, but he showed his appreciation through actions. When Olivia's saddle developed a crack in the leather, he spent an evening repairing it, his hands patient and skilled. When she mentioned she missed her mother's recipe for biscuits, he made sure to buy the right kind of flour and honey the next time he went to town. When Jake made a careless comment about women not understanding ranch work, Samuel cut him off with a look that could have frozen fire, and made it clear that Olivia's word was law on anything regarding the business side of things. Olivia found herself watching Samuel when he did not know she was looking. The way he moved, economical and sure. The rare smile that transformed his weathered face. The patience he showed with the animals, gentling a skittish horse or checking a lame cow with steady hands. She had grown up around cowboys and ranch hands, rough men and smooth-talking charmers and everything in between. Samuel was none of those things. He was simply himself, solid and real and utterly without pretense. She was falling in love with him, she realized one evening in early March. They were in the main house going over the books, planning the spring cattle drive, and Samuel said something about the new calves, and she looked up to find him watching her with an expression she could not read. The lamplight caught the silver threading through his dark hair, and she thought, I want to stay here with him, building this for the rest of my life. The realization terrified her. Samuel was not a demonstrative man. He never touched her beyond the courtesies of helping her mount a horse or steadying her on icy ground. He never spoke of anything personal. For all she knew, he thought of her as exactly what she had proposed to be, a business partner, useful and competent and nothing more. The photograph of the dark-haired woman was still on the shelf. Olivia did not know who she was and could not bring herself to ask. Spring came slowly to the Montana high plains. Snow melted in patches, revealing the winter-brown grass beneath. The cattle began to move more freely, grazing the new growth. Calving season started, and they were all busy day and night checking the herd, assisting difficult births, protecting the calves from predators and cold snaps. Olivia worked alongside Samuel and the hands, her exhaustion absolute and strangely satisfying. One night in late April, she returned to her little house after a 16-hour day to find Samuel waiting on the step. He stood when he saw her, hat in his hands. Something wrong? Olivia asked, alarm spiking through her tiredness. No, I wanted to talk to you. He looked uncomfortable, which was so unlike him that Olivia's alarm deepened. All right. She unlocked the door and lit the lamp inside, then turned to face him. What is it? Samuel stood in the doorway, not quite entering. The cattle drive is in 2 weeks, he said. I want you to come with me to handle the sale negotiations. Of course, we planned that. Olivia waited. That was not what he had come to say. People will talk more than they already do if we travel together. Days on the trail, nights camped out. He met her eyes. I do not want you to be uncomfortable or for your reputation to suffer. I thought we established I do not care what people say. I know, but I do. Samuel took a breath. I care what they say about you. You have worked hard here, and I will not be the cause of you losing respect in town. Something warm and painful twisted in Olivia's chest. Then what do you suggest? That we make it clear you are not some camp follower or some woman I am taking advantage of. He paused. That we make the partnership legal and official, your name on the deed alongside mine, your name on the brand registration, equal shares, equal say in everything. Olivia stared at him. You want to give me half the ranch. You have earned it, more than earned it. Samuel's voice was steady, but she could see tension in his shoulders. This place would be gone without you. The cattle would have died in the storm. The debts would have buried me. You saved it all, and then you made it better. I want you to stay, as a full partner, if you want that. What about what you want? Olivia asked, her heart hammering. Not the ranch, you. What do you want, Samuel? He was silent for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said quietly, I want you to stay, not just for the ranch, for me. I am not good with words, Olivia. I do not know how to say what I feel. But you should know that you are the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing at night. You should know that when you smile it is like the sun coming out. You should know that I have not felt this way since my wife died 5 years ago, and I did not think I would ever feel it again. The woman in the photograph, his wife. Olivia's throat tightened. I did not know you had been married. She died in childbirth. The baby too. Samuel's voice was flat with old grief. I thought that was the end of loving anyone. I thought I would just work until I was too old to work, and then I would die, and that would be that. But then you rode out in a storm to save my cattle, and then you stayed and made everything better, and somewhere in all of that I realized I was alive again. Because of you. Olivia could not breathe, could not think. She crossed the small space between them in 2 steps and kissed him, her hands gripping his shoulders, pouring everything she could not say into the pressure of her mouth on his. Samuel made a sound low in his throat and wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, kissing her back with a fierce tenderness that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Samuel rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said, the words rough and unpracticed but absolutely sincere. "I do not want a business partner. I want a life partner. Someone to build this place with, to make decisions with, to share everything with. I want you, Olivia, if you want me." "I want you," Olivia whispered. "I have wanted you for months. I thought you only saw me as useful." "You are useful," Samuel said and smiled, a real smile that lit his whole face. "You are also stubborn and brilliant and brave and beautiful, and I am not fool enough to let you go." She kissed him again, softer this time, savoring it. "Then I suppose we have a partnership to make official, in every way." They were married quietly a week later in the church in Eureka Springs, with Olivia's father and uncles and the ranch hands as witnesses. Mrs. Pemberton sniffed disapprovingly, but most of the town seemed relieved that propriety had been restored. Olivia did not care either way. She wore her mother's best dress, and Samuel wore a suit that made him look uncomfortable but devastatingly handsome. And when he slipped a simple gold band on her finger, she felt like she had come home to a place she had been searching for her whole life. The cattle drive was successful. Olivia negotiated hard with the buyers in Billings, Samuel standing quietly at her shoulder, a united front. They got top dollar for the herd and paid down a significant chunk of the bank loan. On the ride home, Samuel told her about his plan to expand the horse breeding operation, and Olivia told him about her idea to sell butter and eggs to the mining camps in the mountains. Reliable income through the winter. They worked the ranch together through that summer and the next, and the one after that. Olivia added her name to the deed and the brand, a legal partner in every sense. They bought the sheep she had suggested and hired a shepherd, and the wool sales brought in steady cash. They built a new barn and expanded the house, adding a proper bedroom and a dedicated office where Olivia could keep the books. The work was still hard. There were bad years, droughts and disease and market crashes. But they faced it all together, making decisions side by side, trusting each other's judgment. The ranch prospered slowly, stubbornly, the way good things do when they are built on solid ground. People in town stopped talking about them as a scandal and started pointing to them as an example of a well-run operation. Other ranchers asked Samuel how he did it, and he always said the same thing: he had a good partner. Olivia became known as the woman to talk to if you needed fair prices or honest advice about ranch management. She liked the respect, the recognition that she had a mind worth listening to. But what she loved most were the quiet evenings at home, sitting across the table from Samuel going over the books or planning next season's work. The comfortable silences that stretched between them, full of understanding. The way he still looked at her sometimes like she was the answer to a question he had not known how to ask. The steady, enduring love that grew deeper with every passing year. They made a decision together after the third year. No children. It was not a sad choice or a resigned one. They looked at the life they were building, the land they were nurturing, the legacy they were creating, and they realized it was enough. More than enough. They poured everything they had into the ranch, into each other, into the vision of something lasting and good. By the time they had been married 10 years, the Foster Ranch was one of the most successful operations in the county. The bank loan was paid off. The cattle operation was thriving. The sheep and horses brought in additional income. Olivia's butter and egg business supplied half the mining camps within 50 miles. They employed 6 hands year-round and took on extra help during busy seasons, paying fair wages and treating everyone with respect. Samuel was 42, his hair more silver than brown, his face deeply lined from years of sun and wind. Olivia was 34, strong and confident, her hands work roughened but capable of gentleness. They were partners in every sense, equals in all things, bound together by love and labor and shared purpose. One evening in late autumn, after the first snow had fallen but before the deep cold set in, they sat together on the porch of the house they had expanded and improved over the years. The land stretched out before them, the cattle dark shapes in the distance, the horses moving in the near pasture. The sky was fading from gold to purple, stars beginning to emerge. "You ever regret it?" Samuel asked. He was sitting close to her, their shoulders touching, her hand in his. "Regret what?" Olivia asked. "This life, the work, no children, all of it." Olivia turned to look at him, this man she had built a life with, this partner who had proven his love every single day in 1,000 quiet ways. "Not for 1 second," she said. "This is exactly the life I wanted. Exactly the partner I wanted. I would not change anything." Samuel smiled, that rare full smile that still made her heart skip. "Neither would I," he said. "You made all of it possible, the ranch, the success, everything. I knew it that first day when you beat the storm home with the herd. I knew the ranch ran better with you, but it was not just the ranch. My whole life runs better with you." "Our life," Olivia corrected gently. "It belongs to both of us." "Our life," Samuel agreed. He raised her hand to his lips and kissed it, a gesture of tenderness and reverence. "I love you, Olivia Foster. I loved you when you rode out in that storm, and I will love you until the day I die." "I love you too," Olivia said. "My partner, my husband, my home." They sat together as the stars came out, two people who had found each other in the teeth of a blizzard and built something that would last. The ranch stretched around them, solid and thriving, a testament to hard work and trust and love that showed itself in actions rather than words. It was not the life either of them had imagined when they were young, but it was the life they had chosen together, and it was more than enough. It was everything. The years continued to pass, each season bringing its own challenges and rewards. They faced them all as they had from the beginning, side by side, making decisions together, trusting in the partnership they had forged. When neighbors fell on hard times, they helped where they could, remembering their own struggles. When young couples asked for advice, they shared what they had learned about building something lasting. The Foster Ranch became a landmark, a place people pointed to as proof that with hard work, honesty, and the right partner, anything was possible. But Samuel and Olivia did not think of themselves as remarkable. They simply showed up every day and did the work, found joy in small victories, weathered the setbacks, and loved each other through all of it. On their 20th anniversary, Samuel added something new to the ranch brand, a small mark incorporating both their initials, intertwined. It was a private thing, not flashy or sentimental in any obvious way, but it said everything that needed saying. Two people, two lives, woven together into something stronger than either could have been alone. "Perfect," Olivia said when she saw it. "We are," Samuel replied, and kissed her in the barn where they had first sheltered from the storm, the place where everything had begun. They lived and worked and loved on that land for the rest of their days. When they were old, they would sit on the porch in the evenings and watch the sun set over the ranch they had built together, and they would remember that cold day when a storm had brought them together and changed both their lives forever. They would remember the hard work and the struggles and the victories, but mostly they would remember this, that they had found each other, chosen each other, and built something real and lasting together. And that was the best story of all.